Why, hello there, it's Lee. There we go. I wish you the best, and namaste. As we get into the video, I wanted to have a little oolong tea as I speak, so please allow for that. And basically the video is going to be this. We're talking about the sheer paramount importance of real true self-acceptance, real relying on yourself as an authority, and the natural, and I don't mean relying on yourself like just to do, how should I word this, to do anything you want and whatever you make up is the right answer or something like that, but rather when we really go into the depth of the core of being, when you really become, for lack of a better word, an existentialist, someone that studies being, not things, right? We have the various sciences, people are studying lots of things. Mostly when we use the word science, it's a bad word because it has been condensed, unfortunately, to mean palpable things, the study of the 3D physical. Real science is far beyond just this, or rather it incorporates a lot more than just that. So those who study being truthfully and with the right intention and are looking for the honest truth become by natural default the best authorities to speak about being. And it's not about, you see, when there is the sincere desire, there's no such thing anymore as competitive nature, a need to differentiate so much, a need to put subcategories in things. It just becomes a wholesome, that's where the word holy comes from, right? A holy and wholesome endeavor to identify, to assess what is the self. Hence we have the term self-realization or the real enlightenment. So by saying all that for my introduction, if you'll allow me, I want to get into the importance of having to rely on self as the final authority for anything when your objective, your mental state, your psyche, your openness of heart is bent on truth and naked, open analysis of yourself and of others and anything and everything. Why I wish to bring it up is because I was just thinking recently that we are still so much in a society, where anywhere in the world, I guess, supposed to have some liberties here and there, but the fact is we're still taught, well, it's like an automatic default when we're young. We have our parents and all these authority figures and approval and disapproval structures, for lack of a better term, are implemented, and we become so used to them. So when, this is talked about by many people throughout many decades and many centuries and millennia. Now, I like to think of myself as a freedom fighter or someone looking for the truth. I wanted the naked truth. I had a hard time in my 20s coming to grips, early 20s coming to grips with reality, and I like to say that I tried to exit reality in order to really find it because of all these things. Now, societal structures to varying degrees may be necessary for us. We may have church and state, for example, just to use simple words to simplify what I'm talking about. But you yourself know exactly what I mean without having to go on a big rant. We have all these authority structures. We have all these need for approval and acceptance. Do you accept me? Am I worthy? And all this stuff. But it's forced upon us. The media, those who are in love with being powerful in a material sense on the planet, right? The prince of this world is the devil, to use these terms. Then of course these types of individuals will make every great effort, whether we want to call it with black magic or whatever else, to make people insecure and to still look up to the big brother figure and all this. Now for younger souls who are just recently graduate out of animal kingdoms and these sorts of things, it sounds funny, but it is the reality when you do an actual factual self-analysis on soul and being, the where from and the why for and all that. So there are necessary implementations, but now what's happening in the world is a lot of these power structures are being quickly decided as being quite no longer necessary. So what is going to be happening is the banking systems and the abuse of government and all these things. You see, when I use the word government, I always put in quotations because it's not real government. The real government that would be proper and fair and good and true and honest and righteous, real, actual, responsible government is not really existing on this planet just yet. what it takes is for people to learn proper self-governing in order to do that. So those who do not have proper self-governing, when they have power and privileges, so-called, to decide for others what's what, or what timing should be right and what is not. You see, I did a little study on secret societies myself and decided that, realized that not all of them were bad per se. There are some good ones too. But even they are fallen into the illusion of elitism and structures and privileges that they think that they have. And when it's good for humanity, we'll decide such and such. The power is up to you and to I and to anyone at any time. When we feel the gift, when we feel the force of truth and righteousness, the justice, the balance, the respect, then we ourselves take up a stand to do it, even peacefully, even in a gentle way, even in a firm way. Right now what's coming into the world is there's going to be a better distribution of monies, and this is for people's livelihood. We're not talking about material things, we're talking about general livelihood. A life here, an incarnate life here, should not be a prison sentence or such a harsh thing. For some souls it just may needs be. But for others, and for a growing majority now, what's becoming the norm is that all these rather childish things are being now realized for many of us as immature things of the past. We've overcome these steps. So what's being now shown to the elite power structures, even the so-called good, and some of them maybe are, different societies and those who think that they decide for humanity, and in cases they just may. But the fact is, even they are being told now by the so-called commoner, the average person, that, well, you know what, we're putting up with this, our tolerance towards this has reached a very thin point and on a pinnacle. So there's no surprise then that all of these protests and such are going out worldwide, because how long can people tolerate injustices and abuse? People talk of karma and different things. Well, that may be, but now what's happening is there's becoming a shift where all these things are being adjusted and they're all being equalized and the equilibrium is being found. So there's no longer the excuse for a so-called authority or power structure to even say much about, oh well, people deserved it, their karma and all that. No. You see, because even the dark Illuminatis and these sorts of persons trick and deceive themselves with little excuses like this so that they can justify things. But the reality is, real self-assessment, real soul actualization, memory, cognizance of being, goes beyond all these things and goes straight to the pure state of being, where there is seen the equality of all things ultimately. Now, in a timely fashion, we are coming to this, and that's one aspect of it. The main thing I wanted to speak about was being in a state where, similar to the Great Enlightenment of Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, or the Shakyamuni, common era Buddha as we know, was simply this, that even this state of angels and gods and this and that, those themselves are temporary, those are processes, those are levels of being that are still themselves not it, the prime state. When we can shake off authority figures that tell us we are not the prime state, and only perhaps when we're ready to accept ourselves as such are we ready to shush away these authorities. So maybe those authorities exist for a reason for those who need them, but maybe it's coming to a point where now it's starting to suffocate unnecessarily. So now what's happening to humanity, to use this word, is to shush all that away and to realize, and here is the main meat of my topic now, and the main point that I want to say to everybody from the bottom and the depth and the core of my being to you, is that you are absolutely perfect, but like me, you took a trip out from perfection to experience non-perfection and you forgot what you are, just as I did. But now that our memory is coming back and our desire to know the truth and the real depth of reality, not everybody is ready. We search for what we're looking for. When we are sincerely searching, we find, because some people say they are searchers of truth, but they are not. They are still looking for justifications. They still like to be a victim and say, ah, well, I told you so. But you have to be able to go all past all these states of ego which are not the true self. They are modes of being. Whether we want to call it from Buddhism or what have you, it doesn't belong to a particular body of philosophy or religion. It's just truth. Whether it was spoken from druids or shamans in Mongolia, it doesn't matter where it comes from. Truth is truth. People come to realize this great state of being and is not being conditioned. So the shaking off of the fabric of the mind, thought patterns, the emotional processes and impressions that lend and feed into thought processes and lend and feed into emotional state. When we balance mind and heart, and only when we do, then we have the enlightenment, the state of memory. And I'll say it for myself in quite honesty, even for my own personal perception of self, I still have my own thoughts that I'm trying to shake away. So now that I'm that, perhaps I can look at these things in a different way and also shush them down bit by bit by bit, my precious little bit. We are all worthy of everything. The great Chinese sages, in accordance with Buddhists and the original druids and the shamans of various world cultures and locales, realize the great truth as well, that only when you cease to try to be and to possess things, only when you do, then you have remembered yourself as a being. And then when you do that, you realize everything does belong to you. Those who actually fight forcibly to own and to actually make war and strike out against somebody, or to damage and mind control, to do these things, this is the greatest state of imbalance within that individual's self-core. We are all guilty of many wrongs, but we are all equally able to enjoy the glory of many good things, because the potentials of all people is equal. A lot of people are still under various power structures, and they have to exist for levels of soul, but what I'm talking about is the higher echelon, the soul evolution that is taking place is now shaking all these are old ways. These are childish things. These are lesser thans to what is the greater, higher truths. I had a very poignant dream about Illuminati and power structures and governments and church. I saw the Pope standing beside American politicians and this and that, and they're all like childish teenagers on stage graduating for the first time, giggling and elbowing each other, thinking how privileged they were. But that is also youth and a state of ignorance and egotism. What is happening in the world now is indeed like waking from a dream and going, first there's a state, a lot of people are asleep, so to speak. So first there's a state of realizing you are asleep. Then there is a state of trying to make yourself wake up. And there's the fight of waking up, the blinking and the rubbing of eyes, and then going, oh, now I see a lot better. Look what I have been subject to, look what I have subjected myself to, look what I have allowed myself to put up with. What did I deserve, what did I not deserve? How I treat another is indeed how I view myself. If we treat others in a godly manner, in an absolute way of pristine respect and self-awareness, a mirror of your own self, do to others as you would do to yourself. Well, the hidden teaching of what Jesus was saying there was, do indeed see neighbor as your own self, because we have the same origin. We are the same being. Those who try hard to possess material goods and strength and powers in the 3D sense are the furthest from the real self-actualization, even when they think that they're not. So, by saying all this, all of us know, especially when we're in countries that are a little more liberal, a little more able to think out of the box, we can see the patterns and the structures of things and how they were and how they still are in some cases. But we also see the great awakening that is taking place everywhere. When we think about power structures and false governments that are just thieves and business persons pretending to be government and forcibly doing it, it is so true indeed that to say to someone else, do as I say or as we say, or else, when that thought, when that precedent is lingering there, whether of church, whether of state, whether of something, such and such, or else, when there's an attached clause to it. And indeed, they can be quite serious about it. But when and where that exists, when it is a person that is not in balance saying this, indeed, this person is very, very wrong, and in many cases quite foul and quite evil, and it's an unfortunate thing. Now, the world had to allow for this. See, what a lot of people need to understand too is even for all that, everything somehow is in its right place. It is a perfect story. When we think of the power and the truth of prophecies, whether from old monotheistic religion sense or from shamans of this and that culture, anywhere, any prophecy, oracles, this and that, they see the future as it is going to be, and then it does indeed happen. So this earth story is happening purposefully and exactly as it should be, even for all the ugliness. But now what's happening in the world is, yes, we are saying, no, the power is ours, the freedom from this type of conditioning is at hand, the next stage is ready. And even for the next stage and next levels of external experience, it is always and ever always only could be for the prime being, for the real self, the experience of things for and being. So when people are still looking up to an authority to give them approval, when these weak, watered-down religions are there and they say such and such or else, well, to condemn a good person is a foul thing indeed. To remind a bad person of karma is a good thing when we are doing it in a stating of a matter-of-fact manner. If you do this, that retribution will come as a natural default karma towards you. But when we have certain persons that are trying to implement things and giving difficult lives and situations to people, well, then that becomes almost like an abomination or anathema. You see, look at this. I wanted to make mention, and whether you believe in this or not is not the point, but look at actual facts. Countries that have the most peaceful people often have the most corrupt, vicious governments. I was studying world travel recently, and I was thinking to take a trip to Southeast Asia. Perhaps from past life fondness memories and different things, but I wanted to take a trip to Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, these sort of places. I want to look at Angkor Wat. I want to look at the old ancient Buddhist temples scattered all over many of these countries, and Hindu temples, and just for fondness. And I saw that many people who had traveled there, and anyone who lives there, can attest that the people are peaceful, slow to anger, very Buddhist in nature, very calm and agreeable, friendly. And yet their governments are exceedingly corrupt. Because when people are peaceful and sheeple and won't fight, oh well, it's easy to control them. So we're also very thankful then that there's a fighting spirit in the West, but it's not belonging to the West. The fact is it's a resistance spirit, and now it is all over the world. I give my props and salutations to many, many proud, brave persons who are standing up to these things, and even under the threat of jail and different stuff, and who even have been jailed for fighting for democracy, truth, and justice and equality. Have been, think about that, imprisoned for standing up against tyranny. Who's in charge of these governments? To be taxed excessively, to be threatened with all sorts of manners of things for not agreeing with corruption and thievery, when the richest persons in the world pay the least taxes, for example, and the middle class is bled and garroted and backstabbed, and when the poor can barely make it. This isn't a decent society at all. And even in the so-called privileged countries, there is much to be fixed. All countries, in my opinion, should absolutely have free health care, for example, and this is still difficult to have implemented in some countries. Quite something. But when again, it comes back to bowing down and tolerating irresponsible authorities. Oh well, too bad that they're not doing something about it. They, hey? They put themselves on a pinnacle and then we believe it. This is ridiculous. It's just to bring them down is to have the proper perception and say, no, that is not really how it is. It's a temporary ride. What we have to do is take the power to ourselves and become the authority, become the truth of, even if just one voice, one person making a stand, it does connect with others because it is the reality. Again, there's a great example. Look at the success of Mohandas K. Gandhi, who did a fantastic thing as doing passive resistance, of doing manifestations, of doing outspoken resistance. It's not about violence. The masses have the numbers to destroy and put down the elite structures, but the elite structures know that the masses are mostly non-violent persons. And that's why they're there doing these things, because we don't wish to fight them in a violent manner. This is not our style. Maybe if it really came down to it, we would do that. But the point is that is not our first choice, it's not our preference. Because words, recognition, respect, all these natural innate things are vastly superior to mundane, childish, animalistic ways. So we see, as if in a backwards manner, as if in a quote-unquote caste system style, that you have, well, I don't really believe in a caste system, but it's like in a natural, soulful way. You have those who are recent humans who are naturally good at just doing labor, and they don't need to do complicated things. And it's not that they can have to be stupid because you do labor. I've met brilliant persons who did that. The point, I've done simple labor jobs, not the point. But the point is just those who are satisfied with doing certain things. Then you have a business-oriented souls, merchants, people that like wealth and commerce and different things. And you have those who enjoy government, and then that involves many styles, even in medical styles and ways. And then you have the spiritual teachers. So you have the natural things, but the point is, when you have a business-oriented soul groups who are in the power structures, no wonder the world is in a strange backwards manner. But the point is, there's a natural, growing, peaceful resistance that is just going to shrug all of this off. And it is a foreseen outcome. It is a prophesied truth outcome that's coming. And there are a few different scenarios, but I'm pretty confident that the good one that is desired will come about. And if not in our own peaceful resistance, then there will be other things. I mean, look at the world and natural disasters and things. These are signs of the times. Anyway, many subtopics we can get into, but I mainly want to discuss that. Is that to shake off authority structures, become the authority, and not do so in a competitive, because don't become the enemy, become the peaceful Buddha. I was watching TV with my wife. We're watching old shows from the 90s last night because there's memory lane and nostalgia. And I was just sitting there, and a thought popped into my head. Buddhism, or use what word we will, real enlightenment, is pure and absolute innocence. Because you are back in a pure state. You do not have the emotional desire or requirement, because now your mind has been stabilized, and the mind and heart have taught each other now. That you don't need to be something, you don't need to prove something, you don't have to aggress on anything. You don't have to feel you're a victim, you don't have to feel you have something to prove anymore. You just have the self-recognition. When in that position, you are the ultimate authority, whether the world sees it or not. And people have been in that pure, peaceful state, and imbalanced, vicious, competitive, jealous souls have said, oh, jail that person, they're against our structure. But by jailing that person, you have lost and that person has won. Because this is a kindled flame that spreads like a wildfire, and many people say, yeah, we don't have to put up with that anymore. A fear of God, a fear of state. Well, when, to use a term, when the Ten Commandments are written in the heart, there's no human authority to tell you anything anymore. It's not commandments, do it or else, it's just your natural way. Being good is good. Being balanced is the way of it. being in the center of self, because we are all similar, not as different as the world wishes us to think. We're all extremely similar. Think about it. Physically, we're similar. Oh, the two sexes and different colors and races, so-called. But it's just one thing. It's just to give a little spice of life, a little variety for fun. But it is one. There's one human being. There's one being permeating humans, animals, plants, whatever else. It is life. When life contradicts and contrasts itself, there and there alone is there destruction and disharmony. When there is recognition and respect and joy in the oneness, in the beauty of existence, then there is the rising above it, all of that. So, just to say it, just to wrap up again, whether I repeat myself or not, my oolong tea is almost done, so that's kind of my sign, is that when we rely inwardly on truth itself to be the authority, when we can look to ourselves and be comfortable and confident with, let us say, with isness being correct, with the deepest reality being the right final voice, and indeed it is, then we can have the proper perspective and perception on things, to see things as they are. In that case, we go through everyone's walls, we go under, inwards, and we just instantly see the being. And then therein, in an absolutely innocent manner, we can remind anyone else too that they also can be the ultimate authority, but it is not being that, or being that, or being that, but it is in being centered, calm, graceful, respectful, being a real authority, being matter of fact. Then in this case, we have overcome the world, we have overcome the prince of this world, our own inner devil. We are here in this world having many experiences for the sole purpose of overcoming our own inner devil. And then when we do so, we graduate. And as long as the inner devil remains, the person is going to, by their own volition, stay trapped into these 3D realities. But the universe will make sure also that there are gulfs and differences and segments in which souls will dwell. On the moon, example, and other planets, there are further type and further accordance. But no one can cry or complain too much in the sense that, well, maybe you did it to yourself, or ultimately, constitutionally, way back when, there is a responsibility. But those who are in these end times, in the times of change, who are in a very bad positions of very foul selfishness and malice, when the hammer, so to speak, falls upon them, there will be no excuse in that time. There will be no justice. There will be no words to say. Just and it'll be the sobering truth of truths. So again, I say it just to finish the video. Be your own authority. When you're gentle and calm, when we are gentle and calm, we are in the right. If we're fighting for a truth, see, that's why I get mad at certain Christians and Muslims, and when they are aggressively trying to force a religion, or when a state is saying pay taxes or else, and all this, do this or else kind of stuff, in a vicious, offensive, disrespectful manner. When you are aggressive about something, and moreover, you are instigating aggressively, this is indeed a fake and a false jihad. It's not a reality. When you are calm and peaceful and innocent and gentle, and speak factually and echo reality and natural laws of karma and universe, then and there alone are we in the right. And before that, we were still lacking. But it is a process. And the circuit's coming to a head. Let's be very happy, because in our own very lifetimes, we're going to see some fantastic changes, and some great humblings, and some great glories attained for a lot of people who do indeed by now, I think, deserve it. Well, my thoughts for the moment. Have yourself a beautiful day, week, life, whatever. I wish you sincerely the best. We are one. Let's not forget that. The more we remember that and recognize that, We say, oh, well, it always was the default truth. Peace to you, my friend, and we'll catch you soon. Take care.